Nobody wants Donald Trump to no longer be the president more than JD Vance. JD Vance is a spineless sycophant that kisses up to anybody in power. He literally called Trump the American mustache man, and now he's licking his boots, willing to do anything that he says. Now, did JD Vance come to a sudden change of heart? Like, did he realize that Donald Trump is actually a really good guy despite all the negative things that he had to say about him? No! Of course not, right? Of course not. He just really understood that the Trump train, there was no stopping it. And the easiest way for him to ascend to power is to just ingratiate himself to them, right? And Trump obviously wants him around because of JD Vance's connection to various billionaires and wealth in general through, capitalists like Peter Thiel. But things are starting to look a little bit different now, right? Like rumors about Donald Trump's health are growing more and more and more to the point where people are speculating whether he was alive or not earlier today. I didn't even make a video about that. And Trump has been saying some weird stuff like, I want to make it to heaven. I'm an older guy. That coupled with the fact that JD Vance in an interview was like, if something unspeakable happened, then yes, I'd be ready to take on the role of the president. And now it's kind of becoming a little bit more obvious, right? Like Donald Trump, more likely than not, has congestive heart failure to some degree, and it's probably going to incapacitate him for being the president. The people that put him in power, despite him being so extreme with like the tariffs and things like that, they're probably just hedging their bets that he won't be able to finish his term, and someone that is willing to just do whatever he is told, like JD Vance, will take power, and the Republicans can have their cake and eat it too. I do think it would backfire though, just because JD Vance just isn't very charismatic. Like he comes across as a cherub-faced little boy. So I don't think, these Republicans are going to think he's as cool as Trump, even if he is saying objectively like the same exact stuff. So if that day ever comes for JD, I hope he says thank you.
I'm very aware of the rumours that JD Vance is gearing up to be the frontrunner for the Republican presidency going forward. Trump and Rupert Murdoch are now at each other's throats at the same time that JD Vance was allegedly visiting Murdoch at his ranch, for, as of now, currently undisclosed discussions with the biggest right-wing media mogul in the world. Vance also posting stuff like this, not that anyone noticed because no one cares about what JD Vance does. Him wearing a Trump 2028 hat when Trump has already said that he won't run again, given what we know now, implies that he is going to be running to be the nominee in 2028. I fully agree when a lot of people say that ideologically JD Vance is much worse than Donald Trump. I don't believe he's got a shot. Even if he does get that nomination, the MAGA cult is glued to Trump. The Republican establishment has abandoned the idea of establishment figures in favour of a Messiah, Jesus, Daddy, Emperor in Donald Trump. JD Vance cannot fill those shoes once Trump is no longer there. No one can fill those shoes. That's how it's been designed. That is how messiahs and cult leaders work. You don't really replace them. Cult normally just falls apart. Yeah, I get it. He's nasty. He's backed by the Heritage Foundation, but his wife is Indian. I've not got a problem with that, but I know that a good 80% of the MAGA crowd will. Remember how unbelievably disgusting and racist they were towards Michelle Obama when she became the First Lady of the United States? You really think they're going to want to vote for having that again, given what their beliefs are? JD Vance is a hugely unpopular vacuum of charisma who is known to not have any beliefs of his own and just switches up based on who he's trying to suck up to. Does not have the star power of Donald Trump. He will never have the political capital of Donald Trump. He'll never have the 50 years of carefully curated television image that Donald Trump has been relying on this whole time. But yes, I think JD Vance will try and put himself forward as Trump's successor. All the evidence points to that. I would say the odds are very heavily stacked against him, and if I were a betting man, I would bet on a crash and burn. It couldn't happen to a nicer man. Follow for more.
JD Vance says he's ready to be president if, God forbid, something happens to Trump. Sounds suspicious, huh? Especially because Trump hasn't been seen in 4 days since his last press conference. Trump, which is now the oldest president to be inaugurated ever, was diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency, a condition that impacts blood flow to the legs. But subsequently, all month, he's had several other things happen, like the swelling of his legs, the swelling of his hands. He's had dark marks all over his arms and his legs, and he was hiding it with makeup last week. But Trump, who is usually on TV every day, loud and proud and boldly saying statements, has not been in the public eye for 4 days, which has been causing a lot of rumors to circulate about his health. And if this was Biden, they would have been putting a magnifying glass on every little thing happening with him. But when your vice president comes out publicly and says, I'm ready to be president if, God forbid, something terrible happens while you disappear for more than 72 hours, makes you go home.
American, just know this. JD Vance becoming the president is going to be more worse than the tenure of Donald Trump. That is, if the rumor is true that Donald Trump actually kicked the bucket, because I don't see why a vice president would take to a post and then post something like he is ready to be the president if, God forbid, something happen. Like, why? Why will you even think that? Why will you even put out that in the first place, no matter how bad this president is? You are the vice president, for crying out loud. Anyways, both black and white Americans actually they are reacting to this. Some are not happy, some are happy, but we're going to go into that before I'll come back and wrap up my video. But just know this and know this for sure that JD Vance is going to be the worst president than Donald Trump. Welcome back to my channel. If this is the first time tuning in, my name is Sonia. Thank you so much for clicking. Thank you for always supporting my videos. Let me know in the comments what you think. I'll go ahead and roll out the clips for you guys. Then I'll be back with commentaries.
The Vice President of the United States, JD Vance, put out a statement this morning, and I want everybody to understand the gravity of what he's saying here. Now, he's referencing this article by Felicia Schwartz of Politico. Now, if you're not sure who Steve Witkoff is, he is basically Trump's point man for the negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. As you can imagine, the sensitivity of such a position would be extremely important. Optics are extremely important when you're trying to negotiate peace between two countries that could very easily turn into a world war. So as you can imagine, it's a pretty big deal when the mainstream media puts out what amounts to being a hit piece on Steve Witkoff, or as JD Vance puts it, a foreign influence operation, because the story is going to do exactly that. It's going to influence these negotiations. And then JD Vance rightfully questions the motives of Felicia, wondering himself, is it just incompetence or is it something more nefarious? And of course, she cites anonymous sources, like the media always does, completely ignoring on-the-record quotes by people who are actually close to the negotiations. And so it begs the question, who are her sources, and why do they want these negotiations between Ukraine and Russia to fail? Because it's obvious that that was the intent with this article. And then, beyond who her anonymous sources are, why is the mainstream media and large organizations like Politico and CNN, why are they working against the Trump administration? And thus, the gravity of this statement by JD Vance is astronomical, because he's alluding to there being an organized effort, a collaborative effort between rogue intelligence operatives within the Trump administration and the mainstream media to derail peace. And that's the possibility that our vice president is alluding to that might be true here. And that, my friends, is a big effing deal. No matter how much you despise the American mainstream news media, it's not enough.
The president is in perfect health, so I don't know where all these rumors are coming from. No one's answering any of my texts or calls, but that's normal. And they wouldn't do that if he was dead, right? I would have to hear about that. Besides, what evidence do you have that he has foundation on the back of his hand? Maybe he just likes Sephora. Not that I know what that is, or that I've ever used any products that may be sold there. I mean, look at him. He's the picture of health. Well, no, I haven't seen him in person. They don't let me near him ever since the incident with Pope Francis. Never mind, forget that I just said that, or I'll have you imprisoned, because I can do that now. But you can rest assured that, God forbid, even if something did happen to our supreme leader, president, that I'm perfectly capable and ready to take over. So just to recap, he's completely fine and healthy, but even if he wasn't, it's gonna be fine, because I'm taking over.
We don't want it to happen, y'all. JD Vance will go into power. You know that, right? This coming from a girl who's hated that man since 5th grade to now 18. I protested against Trump. I've done a lot of stuff in the political scene. Regrettably, I don't know too much about JD Vance, but I do know that Trump is a pawn currently. And whenever that pawn gets taken out, You're just left with the ones behind the scenes.
There's so much truth in this comment because we all know that they rigged, they bought, they stole this election, a combination of all of that. Donald Trump right now is a means to an end for white nationalism. It could have been anyone. It just so happened to be him. We all know that he's not the president. He's a puppet. He's doing the bidding of those that bought and paid for him. But see, Donald Trump is a sloppy, loud puppet. He's a narcissistic puppet. He's an arrogant puppet. I mean, let's face it, he's a on his way out the fucking dough ass puppet. But that is the plan, to get JD Vance in that office. Because JD Vance is much more malleable. He's much more obedient. He will do what he is told at any time that he is told to do so. Even with the maggots, Trump could have been anyone. It's not Trump that they worship and adore. It is what they believe he represents. Most maggots are undereducated. And so when they hear him speak, they connect.
All right, our little smoky eye sociopath, JD Vance, is either trying to collude with like the tech oligarchs against Trump, and then he kind of gets busted for that. And then all of a sudden he's the biggest cheerleader with jazz hands and his eyeliner for President McCankle's taco tits. But let's look at what JD Vance is putting on Twitter right now. The gerrymander in California is outrageous. Of their 52 congressional districts, 9 of them are Republican. That means 17% of their delegation is Republican when Republicans regularly win 40% of the vote in that state. How can this possibly be allowed? And then, of course, one of my favorite Twitter accounts, Evan Loves Wharf, responds, "Your pedophile boss forced Texas to do this," which is a gerrymandered map of Texas. A couple of things. Number one, the way Evan Loves Wharf is speaking here is the way all Democrats need to speak. We need to quit fucking around. We need to start calling Trump what he is at all times. And we need to call out the hypocrisy, because MAGA likes to traffic in petty politics, and we're going to have to walk and chew gum at the same time. We're going to have to be petty. We're going to have to go after all of Trump's sexual depravity, all of JD Vance's hypocrisy, sociopathy, and of course the smoky eye, which I'm convinced we're a news cycle away from. But what's your take on that, Pumps?
I think that it is so incredible, the hypocrisy when these people, JD Vance, who you mentioned the oligarchs, I 100% think that JD Vance and the oligarchs are plotting against Trump. I don't think there's any question about that. But to talk about gerrymandering in California on the foothills of Trump telling Greg Abbott to gerrymander and he does it, the fact that they have absolutely zero self-awareness of the hypocrisy, which of course JD Vance doesn't, because not too long ago, I can still remember he called Trump's America's Hitler. This man has no conviction. He's doing the cheerleading thing for Trump because he knows on the inside he's going behind his back, in my opinion.
I think they do have a self-awareness as to what they're doing, especially when it gets to JD Vance. Trump, no. But they know that Trump polls well with the poorly educated. They know the base is not, big critical thinkers, and they gaslight because it works and it's successful. And I think it's intentional. They intentionally say, oh shit, Newsom's going to fuck us in California. We got these 5 seats, Newsom in California, Hochul in New York, and Pritzker in Chicago. They're going to fuck us on this thing. So they have to start putting out the propaganda. I think it's intentional. It would provide me more comfort if they didn't have self-awareness, but this is how diabolical and evil the authoritarian regime is. It's intentionally gaslighting. It's intentionally propagandic. And how we know this is you talk about the tech oligarchs. They all admire this guy. Put this up. They all admire this guy named Curtis Yarvin. And Curtis Yarvin is like at the epicenter of what's called dark enlightenment, which JD Vance is all in on this. JD Vance's I don't know, master.
Yeah,
Peter Thiel. Yeah. Anyway, this is a real tweet from Curtis Yarvin, and JD Vance is on the record saying he admires Curtis Yarvin. And I'm going to read this to you. No, we have only one problem. The problem is our billionaires are N-words, hard R. They may be rich, but they are N-word, hard R, Rich. You can probably name exceptions. I can too, but in every way, the exceptions prove the rule. So Smokey Eye Sociopath is on the record saying he admires this guy. And this guy is at the epicenter of all of the tech oligarchs thinking. The ethos all comes from this guy, Curtis Yarvin.
It's so gross that these people feel so emboldened to talk this way. They truly believe they are better than everyone else because they have money, because they are typically white men. And JD Vance is right there in the middle of it, raised poor, went out to the Yossify School of Peter Thiel. Now he has money. You know, Peter Thiel put him in office. He has absolutely no conviction. I just always go back to JD Vance is such a hypocrite. Always.
Here's what gets me about a bunch of these guys. Like if you look at Scott Jennings, the CNN commentator, you look at JD Vance, all of these guys, their number one thing they're good at is kissing ass.
Right.
That's all they really have conviction about. Like JD Vance has to kiss Peter Thiel's ass. And I imagine he's had to earn every penny. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. But, you know, and then Scott Jennings, there's video after video of him having clarity about what a piece of shit Trump is. And then all it takes is for Trump to trot him out on stage like he's his little show pony. And then Scott Jennings gets out there and he's like, yeah, I was flying over Iowa and I thought I need to get some farmland for all the libs that I own. And then all the MAGA rubes go crazy. But at their core, these guys just kiss the ass of billionaires. And these billionaires do nothing but incessantly whine. All the while, they feel the desire to talk about how masculine they are. Well, why do they have to talk about how masculine they are all the time? Because they're not. Because they're deficient. Because they're insecure. Because they feel like they're not worthy. Their mom and dads didn't love them enough. So you have these gross, evil billionaires that are surrounded by suck-ups. And at the core of all of it is just this nonstop whining, like the host of Flagrant podcast. Kylie, what's that guy's name?
Andrew Schultz.
Andrew Schultz. So, of course, he has Donald Trump on his podcast. He votes for MAGA. He's all chips in on MAGA. And then the Jeffrey Epstein thing goes down. And he's like, oh, hold up a second. This seems kind of crazy. Maybe Trump is lying to us. And everybody's like, you dipshit. Why did you vote for Trump? And then he starts whining about people, you know, calling him out for voting for Trump. It's unbelievable how much we've normalized male whining. And MAGA is the cheerleader. And that is the biggest shift I've seen in American culture is you have these authoritarians that want to be the thought police. They want to control everybody's bedroom. They want to control what everybody thinks. They want to force you to love America because they're fucking patriots and all this shit. They want to force you to love Donald Trump, who has cankles, who wears a full face of makeup, who's clearly dementia ridden. They want to force you to like him. At the same time, they're such badasses, but then they whine nonstop, just like Charlie Kirk goes out to New York. I felt so unsafe. These guys are the biggest bunch of pussies and hypocrites I've ever seen in my entire life. Which brings me to there always are women that are standing up against this. And we have Jessica Tarloff, who literally, like, she deserves the Nobel Peace Prize.
No shit.
Because she goes onto Fox News. And I think it's a very important job. The people who go into right-wing media, whether they're politicians, whether they're journalists or commentators, and speak the truth to the cult. And she has been exposing President McCankle's taco tits, corruption nonstop. And of course, he goes bananas. But here's what she says on Fox, which I think is so important.
Here's what I think is going to happen if Trump, during his time in office. A lot of people have been talking about the president's health and how it could lead to him while in office. But then also people are kind of scared that what if JD Vance is worse than Trump? What's going to happen then? I'm unfortunately very entrenched in MAGA country, and I have been this entire time. So the way I see it, it could go two different ways. And both of these ways are going to be predicated on which conspiracy theory people pick up after Donald Trump. You know, because there is going to be a conspiracy theory, and that's what's going to rule the narrative afterwards. Now, the first conspiracy theory is the one that people should be worried about happening, which is they blame the Democrats or the liberals or something. and rally around JD Vance very hard as a defiant measure to, get back at the Democrats. Option 2, which I think is more likely now because of the Epstein thing, is that they blame JD Vance for what happened. So, in MAGA, one of the prevailing theories about the Epstein files is that Trump still really wants to release the Epstein files, but he's being prevented from doing so by people who are really powerful and would do something to him, if he were to say anything. But of course they don't think it's going to stay that way. They think that Trump has a plan to release the Epstein files, he just hasn't done it yet. And he can't talk about it because he doesn't want everybody else to know what he's up to. So if Trump were to, around this time, while people are still talking heavy about the Epstein files, I think that the prevailing conspiracy theory would become that JD Vance, the Republican Guard, Peter Thiel, all of those people had something to do with it. And then you'd have a revolt similar to the incident in 2020 that I can't talk about. I think that scenario is more likely to happen if it happens soon, while people are still talking about Epstein. I think the other scenario is more likely to happen if it happens later, when people are not talking about Epstein as much. But even if people were to rally around JD Vance as kind of like a performative, defiant measure, it wouldn't be the same as Donald Trump. I'll use Elon Musk as an example. A lot of people in MAGA saw that coming. And just in general, everybody saw that coming. I have to imagine that even Elon Musk himself knew that aligning himself with Donald Trump was a big risk, and he took it anyway because that's kind of what billionaires do. Taking risks equals money. So anybody who experienced Trump's first presidency knows that he's not loyal, and he's known for switching up on people, and somebody who he claims to be a really good person, a really great friend, a really good colleague one day, the next day, done. Completely blacklisted, gone. And MAGA knows that this is also the case with JD Vance. I mean, Donald Trump's last presidency ended with people basically trying to the vice president. And as a Hoosier, I saw what happened. Mike Pence came back to Indiana. He hasn't left his house since because he's public enemy number one now. He's completely ostracized. He lives in MAGA country, and everybody hates his ass. The liberals, the leftists, the conservatives, the MAGA, everybody fucking hates him. Since JD Vance doesn't really have that parasocial relationship, it's going to be very hard for people to just force themselves to ignore all of the negative consequences they're feeling because they, are so loyal and trust Donald Trump. They really trust that overall this is going to be a good thing. Everything's going to fall into place eventually. There's a lot of trust. And that is why he can get away with what he's doing. They don't trust JD Vance that much. And, I don't think that that's going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So even if they do rally around him and support him, he's still going to have to be very cautious, and I think he knows that. Way more cautious than how Trump is being. Trump is kind of going balls to the wall because he knows that he's so thoroughly cultivated this, parasocial relationship that he can do anything. But JD Vance knows that he doesn't have that. He's I believe he's smart enough to know that, and he's going to have to slow down significantly. So that's my theory, and let me know if you think I'm on base or not. Probably said a lot of banned words in this video, so hello to the 20 people TikTok allowed to see it.
Anyways, guys, welcome back. You've seen all of those clips that I've actually played for you guys. And then let me know in your sincerity that if you are in the vice president's shoe, you will come up publicly to make this kind of post. Well, it is not officially announced that the president is finally gone. It simply means there is something deep inside that they are the only ones that knew. And with time, I think we'll get to find out soon because it is really absorbed. A lot of people are not really happy with this. I personally am not happy with it. I don't care. Even if Donald Trump is the worst president ever, But at least as a vice president, as a second person to him, you don't need to come out and make all of this statement. Yes, we know that once anything happen, you are the one that is actually going to take over. You don't need to rub it to the face of Americans, and Americans are really furious about this. Anyways, let's take some comments and let's get to hear what people have in their opinion as well. Okay, so this person said the Oval Office couch is not safe. Exactly, right? This person said the fact they hate him just because of his wife race is just sad. Feeling bad for his wife though. GM said, imagine being a politician and the worst well-known thing about you are images of you as a comedical chubby little boy with a propeller hat and a lonely pup, and the fact that you were accused of knacking a sofa. Don't want to call it that, calling knacking. Exactly, I don't know. Thank you for talking about this. The conspiracy theories are freaking crazy. Exactly. This theory is not making sense at all. Another person said JD Vance is basically a substitute teacher that no one respects. Are we even sure? I don't want to talk. Another person said all of these courts don't survive leadership changes. Exactly. I feel like JD Vance can be relentlessly bullied into a corner. How Vance is gonna be moved as Trump's successor. This is all my Horizon fan. Okay, another person said JD Vance is the worst president that we'll ever have. Trump is actually going to be better. Exactly what I said at the beginning of my video, because someone that cannot even make decision for himself, how does he even stand to start making decision for a whole country? Let's just be honest. Someone that is behaving like as if he's a kid, someone that is behaving like, I don't think Trump has played golf for a number of weeks now. I did said that was a better indication of his health than a press release from the watch. Yeah, we all know that. Yes, recently we've been hearing rumor that Trump's health, blah blah blah, and the rest of that. But since he hasn't come out to publicly say it, who are we, except for the marks that we've been seeing recently and so on and so forth. But I just hope all is well with Trump anyways. I didn't wish him to go like this. No way. Another person said, I'm not entirely convinced Vance wouldn't legally change his last name to Trump to take over his place. He might change his name, oh. Who knows? And Preach said, when Trump is gone, one of two things will happen to MAGAs. Either they will learn to unite under new leaders, which I highly doubt, or the more likely fractured into a small group, each struggling for power. See, we are not praying for Trump to leave, to die. No, no, no. I'm not praying for that, because if Trump mistakenly it happened, a lot is going to happen in US. Like what we are seeing now is just going to be like a tip of an iceberg. You will say I said it, just save this video. The problem with JD Vance for the Republican is that he is fake in an insecure. Wants everyone to think he is cool. He does well enough following others, but he doesn't have the steez to actually lead. That is why I said he's gonna be the worst, because that man don't have anything that is looking like a leadership. You see, despite the fact what Donald Trump is doing, I like him for something. He is straight and he knows that I am a leader. Once he speaks, that is it. But JD Vance, another one say, LMAO, lol, we already went through the better version of this with Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. We already know how this ends. Best case scenario for the Republicans is that Vance gets elected just because his name being attached to Trump, and even if he does, he will be a one-term take brush. Exactly. That is why I think see a lot. I don't even want to be reading so much so that I don't get this video more longer than it is. But just let me know what you think in the comment section. Your comments will be very, very important in this particular video. If you have not subscribed, subscribe, like, comment, and share. And every videos and clips we use in our today's episode, credit belongs to the original creators of these videos. And this is just for educational purpose, right? So just let me know your thoughts. With no further ado, I do like I say in my videos. I'm going to be Simba and I'll see you guys in my next one. For now, bye guys. I love you.